Everyone knows the story of Hachiko, the dog who waited 9 years for a man who was never coming back. But almost no one knows what happened to the woman standing beside him in his final photograph. Her name was Yaeko, and her story is even sadder than his. In the small city of Odate, in Akita Prefecture, Japan, a golden brown Akita puppy was born in November 1923. A few months later, he was brought to Tokyo to live with a professor named Professor Ueno. But Hachiko did not arrive to just one person. He arrived into a home with a woman in it too. Her name was Yaeko Sakano, and though history remembers her only as a footnote, she was, in every way that mattered, Hachiko's mother. Professor Ueno and Yaeko had lived together for almost 10 years. They were never legally married. Ueno's family back in his hometown had already chosen a bride for him. He refused her. He walked away from that arranged life and chose Yaeko instead. They built a home together in Shibuya. And into that home came Hachiko. When Hachiko first arrived in Tokyo, he nearly died. The train journey through the mountains in winter had exhausted him so badly that he was thought to be dead on arrival. It was Ueno and Yaeko together who nursed him back to health over 6 months. Yaeko cooked for him. She followed a strict diet for his weak stomach. She was there for every single day of his recovery. This was not a woman who disliked dogs. This was a woman who saved one. For a little over a year, the three of them lived a quiet, happy life. Every morning, Hachiko walked Ueno to Shibuya Station. Every evening, he was there waiting when the professor stepped off the train. It was routine. It was safety. It was love, repeated daily, until it became sacred. Then came May 21st, 1925. Professor Ueno was at a faculty meeting that morning. He seemed fine. Hours later, in a colleague's office, he suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage. He never saw Shibuya Station again. That evening, Yaeko was the one who had to face what came next. She wrapped Ueno's blood-stained shirt inside a futon with her own hands. She placed it in the storage shed, unable to look at it any longer. The very next day, Hachiko disappeared. For 3 days, no one could find him. When a servant finally located him, he was curled up beside that same shed next to his master's shirt. He had not eaten anything in 3 days. At Ueno's wake, Hachiko lay beneath his coffin and would not move. The next morning, he did the only thing he knew how to do. He walked to Shibuya Station, and he waited. But while the world remembers Hachiko's wait, almost no one remembers what Yaeko lost that same week. Because she and Ueno had never legally married, Japanese law at the time gave her no rights to their home. 2 months after his death, she was forced to pack her belongings and leave. Not the house, not the memories inside it, just her personal things. She had nowhere of her own to go, and she could not take Hachiko with her. She tried. She truly did. She sent him first to a relative who ran a kimono shop, but Hachiko was too friendly, too large, jumping on every customer who walked through the door. He was moved again to a family in Asakusa who kept him tied to a barber's chair in their backyard. He broke free more than once. Each time he ran straight back toward Shibuya, back toward the station, back toward the spot where he had last seen the man he loved. For nearly 2 years, there is almost no reliable record of where Hachiko slept or who fed him. Historians believe this gap exists because those years were simply too chaotic, too painful for anyone to properly document. Yaeko was rebuilding a life with nothing. Hachiko was searching for a life that no longer existed. 2 broken hearts, pulled apart by circumstances neither of them chose. Eventually, Ueno's former students, who adored him so deeply, stepped in. They sold a vacation home Ueno had once owned and used the money to build Yaeko a small house in Setagaya. It was an act of pure loyalty to a man who was gone. But even in her new home, Hachiko could not stay settled. He trampled the fields around it. He did not get along with the other dogs there. So one final placement was arranged. With Kobayashi, the professor's former gardener, whose home was close enough to Shibuya that Hachiko's daily pilgrimage would be easier to make. And from that small gardener's house, for the next several years, Hachiko walked to Shibuya Station almost every single day, watching every train, searching every crowd, waiting for a face that would never appear again. Here is what breaks people's hearts most when they learn the full story. Yaeko never stopped seeing him. Rumors spread for decades that she abandoned Hachiko, that she never loved him at all. But those who actually knew her tell a different story completely. The sculptor who created Hachiko's famous bronze statue often brought the aging, frail dog into his studio to pose him. His own son later revealed that whenever Yaeko walked into that studio to visit, Hachiko's entire body would light up with joy. That reaction, captured in his final years, is the exact expression frozen forever in the statue that now stands at Shibuya Station. Every person who takes a photo beside that statue is, without knowing it, looking at the face Hachiko made only for the woman who once saved his life. Hachiko continued his vigil for 9 years, 9 months, and 15 days. On the morning of March 8, 1935, his body was finally found on a street near Shibuya Station. He was 11 years old. When they examined him, they discovered terminal cancer and a severe parasitic infection. And in his stomach, they found several yakitori skewers, wood and all. That kind station workers had been feeding him in his final years. In the very last known photograph ever taken of Hachiko, there is a woman kneeling beside his body. Station workers gathered around her, grief written across her face. That woman was Yaeko. She had lost Ueno in 1925. Now, 10 years later, she was losing the last living piece of the family they had built together. Yaeko lived on for another 26 years after that, working as a tea ceremony instructor to support herself. She never remarried, and before she died in 1961, she told her family one final wish. She wanted her ashes placed in the same grave as Ueno, so that after everything, after decades apart, she could finally rest beside him again. For 55 years, that wish went unfulfilled. She was buried in a separate cemetery, far from the man she loved. Then, in 2013, on what would have been Hachiko's 90th birthday, a university professor named Shoshi Ozawa discovered the old document containing Yaeko's request. He could not let it be forgotten. Alongside a museum curator, he spent 2 years navigating Japanese burial law and bureaucracy, working with both families to make her wish come true. On May 19, 2016, 91 years after Professor Ueno's death, a small ceremony was held at Aoyama Cemetery in Tokyo. Yaeko's descendants stood together as part of her remains were finally laid to rest beside Ueno's grave. Her name was carved into the side of his tombstone, and there, in that quiet cemetery in Tokyo, 3 graves now sit together. Professor Ueno, Yaeko, and Hachiko, whose ashes had been placed beside his master's the very same year he died. One of the family's descendants, standing at that ceremony, said something that captures this entire story better than any statue ever could. He said that love can transcend time. For 91 years, this family was scattered by circumstance, by outdated laws, by tragedy no one could have prevented. A man who died too soon, a woman who was never allowed to call herself his wife, a dog who never understood why his person stopped coming home. All 3 of them waited, in their own way, for a reunion none of them were certain would ever come. And in the end, it did. The world remembers Hachiko as the dog who waited 9 years at a train station. But the fuller truth is even more beautiful. Hachiko was never really waiting for just one person. He was part of a family that loved him and each other so deeply that even death, even decades, even the cruelty of old inheritance laws could not keep them apart forever. They are together now. All 3 of them, forever. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who believes love never truly ends. And subscribe, because next week we bring you another true story the world needs to hear.